All right, we're live. Hello and welcome to CMB's monthly meetup. I'm your host, Ali Malik, and today I'm joined by Khadija Khan. Khadija is uh, uh, from Pakistani background, and she's a
Yeah,
commentator and writer, a journalist. You can, so welcome, Khadija. Thank you for joining me, first of all. Uh,
thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
no, thank you. Uh, so, if you like to tell people where can people find your writings and your articles whenever you publish?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter. I guess I share all my articles and stuff on Twitter. So it's Khadija Khan. So you can
Uh,
just follow me on Twitter. That's the
that's
best
great.
way to find me.
Great. I think your Twitter handles in the description as well. So please have a look in the description. So the topic for today is misogyny and religion's role in that. Sorry, let me
Mhm,
just load up my questions.
mhm,
Uh, and right, and in that, I wanted to start like first of all, generally, what role do religions play and how they impact women in general, and then we'll probably we'll bring it to Islam in particular because we are ex-Muslims. That's what we need to talk about, and then Islamic countries, how women are, what fate do women face in those countries. So, if I can ask you to just generally summarize what religions, how they treat women and the impact religions in general have on women's rights around the world.
Uh, we we see throughout history that there has always been a conflict over the issues related to women's rights within religious discourse, especially reproductive rights. And we see there are efforts have been made to control women and subjugate their sexuality in the name of divine rules and regulation, and especially in organized religion. And Islam is not an exception here. We see they say men and women are equal in the eyes of God, but what they don't say is that it's only in spirituality. I mean, this has nothing to do in worldly affairs. The societal role assigned men and women, they are like defined by what is described in or prescribed in religious description, in religious teachings. It has nothing to do with the equality that they assert in arguments merely. And we see that this whole treatment of women within religious discourse, the religious explanation for this inequality and disparity has been described as conservatism. But this poses a question that why this conserved tradition or traditions and teachings are biased against women but not men. Women are not allowed to be ordained, and in Islam they are not allowed to be imam. And we see that religious authorities or people who are in power, who hold the power within religious circles, they also endorse the patriarchal setups and status quo that doesn't treat women equally and treat them in as subhuman being, I would say, because when you don't talk about equality, the what is there left for women? It's all like you have to perform certain duties and you have to take some responsibilities, and this is
Yeah,
all you have to do to please men who are in
yeah,
power and to please your God who is uh, giving you these responsibilities to carry. So
yeah,
I see that religious rights have never been compatible with human rights, and this effort or these assertions to make religious rights, I mean, compatible with human rights or try
yeah,
to define women's rights in terms of religious rights. Uh, they bear no fruit. We see that women are struggling to get their basic human rights in the societies where the norms and moral values are derived from religious sources. So,
yeah,
this is how religious um, teachings impact women, and this is how women are being denied their basic human rights
Yeah.
within religious discourse.
Yeah, great. So you mentioned a couple of things, like when you talked about women being equal in spirituality or in the eyes of Allah. I think it's quite interesting the linguistics used because, okay, we need to realize we live in a world where they cannot openly justify out and out misogyny, right? So the linguistics gives in Allah's eyes, they are equal spiritually.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you hear Muhammad saying women are deficient in faith as well. So when it
Yes.
comes to humans, and humans are actually making a judgment call or whatever, men are always put on top of women, even in the matters of faith. And we see
Yes.
that. That's where the next question is. Can you highlight some of the differences that Islam describes for men and women, and how what's the difference in their gender roles, and what who comes on top basically? Islamic.
I firmly believe, yes, I firmly believe that it's a basic human rights for people to subscribe to a faith if they want to.
Completely.
And in Western democratic societies, they have this right to practice their religion freely. So it's their basic human right. But this freedom of religion does not and should not be granted at the expense of women's rights. And people who say that patriarchy exists everywhere, and this male dominance to control women and subjugate their sexuality is not unique to Muslim societies, and it's everywhere, all around the world. You can find victims of domestic violence, and women are treated badly or inhumanly. It's true, but let's not make it as an excuse to just brush the harsh realities of women living in Muslim societies under the carpet. Violence against women cuts uh, deep into the history of these societies, where religion is invoked to tell women that they are inferior, and men are given, the upper hand to control all affairs and to dictate women what to
Yeah.
do, what not to do. So they are the male's main source of guidance in those societies, and
Yes.
women are there to obey and to be modest, to please them or to survive in those societies, I would say. So we see that according to the religious belief, women, and particularly their sexuality, is is constantly seen as a potential threat to the society as a whole. Then we see wife beating, which is sanctioned by Quran, and men are told that it's their ordained right to beat women, and
Yeah.
they can discipline them by beating them. And then they would tell you, these sugar-coated stuff that you can beat them lightly, you can beat them with steak.
Yeah.
I think the act of beating is an act of humiliation. Whether you do it to a child, you cannot
Completely.
justify it uh, by giving such fallacious argument, in my view. And then there is this guardian and ownership system, and they would say it has nothing to do with Islam. Yes, it directly derives, from the scriptures, when they give men, or they make men responsible for women's bread and butter. Then they are giving men authority over women to control her life.
Yeah.
So it's not something outside of the religious discourse. It's everything happening within the religious framework. And then women are referred to as field, and men are instructed to go to their field as plow as they want to. I mean, this speaks volumes about the status of men and women
Yeah.
in the societies which are built on religious morality.
Yeah.
So then we see there are religious sources endorsing FGM, nikah halala, instant divorce, and we see the polygamy, and then child marriage. We see there are sources that endorse these traditions and these kind of beliefs, and they are all used to perpetuate violence against women in Muslim societies, and not only in not only in Muslim societies, but also here in the West, within the closed Muslim communities. We see that women who dare to defy the set standards of morality or of religious morality, they are labeled as, sellout. They are called whores, vulgar. They are ostracized. They are, tortured, and in worse cases, they are killed. So it's not something which is happening outside of the religious discourse. There are teachings, there are sources that endorse these kind of traditions and beliefs, and we need to address them. We need to talk about it, and we cannot just brush them under the carpet by saying that this has nothing to do with religion.
Yes, yes, completely. And you started with the how these are. So some of the rights that women do have here in the West are hard fought rights, and now, yes, they are somehow being taken granted for, because the new generation doesn't actually realize that the whole movement and the suffering behind actually achieving those rights. But freedom of religion, yes, of course, everybody should have their freedom of religion, but it's it's that navigation that needs to be done when that freedom is clashing with those hard fought rights. There's the issue of divorce. Muslim women cannot divorce their husbands uh, on their own will. They have to ask
Yes,
for it, right? There's issue of consent within marriage. That's a massive issue. But Islam doesn't recognize women not giving consent. If marriage, nikah means consent for life. So there is that issue. And these rights have been fought here and won. Uh,
yes.
and how do you see the way forward from there on? Because there is a there is a branch of feminism in the West that actually somehow do tend to align with Islam or Islamic feminism, let's say. How do you see Islamic feminism, and how is that beneficial to women, or how is it damaging? How do you see it?
You just said something about consent in the marriage.
Yes.
It is there. I mean, they say that you should ask women, but there are caveats. Uh, it is not encouraged in society, and people who are told to give this freedom to women. It's all men. They are the guardians, and ultimately they decide what is right and what is wrong for the women. I will give you an example uh, that what just happened in Pakistan. They say that women can propose, a man, but
Yep.
in Pakistan, a girl just did it in the university and she was expelled
Yes.
because there was a reaction, backlash, and reaction. Nobody accepted it as a norm. There is a belief that women can do it, but it's not happening. So it's in theory, only in theory, and then there are caveats just to deny women this right. So that there is a problem when I see this phenomena of Islamic feminism. There is a struggle between conservative interpreters and those people who want to define their religion in the light of modern social development. The disparity between them is very stark. We can't just overlook this disparity, because what is the modern definition of equality is completely different what is allowable in Islam or under Islamic laws. And the term Islamic feminism, we see that this indicates an engagement with this feminist discourse, which draws on Islamic theology. It says that yes, women should be treated as an equal, as equal in the society, but by upholding theological explanation for the societal roles assigned to men and women. And this whole thing perpetuates a structure where women are living with fewer rights than men. And here the problem is with this phenomena of Islamic feminism, that they they refuse to recognize this discrimination against women
Yeah.
within the religious framework. They try to reconcile religious beliefs with the human rights or with the principles of feminism. Uh, we can take an example of Cairo Declaration 1990, in which women and member of other faiths, they are not treated as equal to men. This assumes this declaration, which is considered as human rights declaration in Islamic world, in Muslim world, it assumes that women's rights should be defined within the framework of religion. And we know that this is not equal for women. This does not give women equal opportunities in the society in any way. But here, when we see the practicality of their claims, the Islamic feminism make, and the living reality of millions of women in the Muslim world, we see that this is shallow. There is no you can substance you will find. It's not fair to say that you can follow Islamic feminism and the whole all troubles of Muslim women or women of Muslim heritage would be gone and equality would be achieved.
Yeah.
It's not the truth. There is this problem, and if you really want to solve this problem, then you have to acknowledge the existence of the problem. Until you address the problem, you cannot find the solution. And this is what I find is very wrong with this notion when they say that Islam is the most feminist religion. You will find fundamentalists and uh, these Islamists, they don't agree with this. They are very much clear, about their beliefs, about their religious beliefs. They know that our religious belief, they don't endorse what feminism stands for.
Yes.
Feminism's Feminism believes or in equality. It believes in equality for men and women.
Yeah.
But Islam or Islamic uh, rights that have been given to women, they are not equal in practice. They might assert that, that this is equality for women that have been given 1400 years ago. But in practicality, we see women are not enjoying the same right as men do in Muslim majority country or in Muslim communities here in the West.
Yes, yes, that's an important uh, point to make, that even in the West, the women within diaspora communities, women are treated as though they are still living in countries where they were going to be treated as second-class citizens anyways. So there is, where do you think that comes from? Where is that a failure? That why is the West, where women are allowed to allow the freedom of choice, they have their freedoms, freedom to wear whatever they like, date whatever what they want to do with their life, they have that. But we see in diaspora communities that women are still treated like the divorce cases. I have many examples. Some of my friends, women from Muslim heritage, wanted to go for divorce, and they had to go through this lengthy ordeal with Sharia councils here, who'd keep on pushing them back into the abusive marriage, because that's how they operate. They don't want women have the autonomy to actually ask for divorce and then get it. Uh, where is that failure? Do you think West has failed to an extent to ensure that same rights have extended to women of Muslim heritage as well?
This is a really unfortunate situation, I would say, that where we see women who have earned these liberties, these freedoms here in the West, but they are, somehow unable to extend the same liberties and freedoms to the women of Muslim heritage. What Muslim women or women of Muslim heritage they are facing is a complete, uh, you know, a complete denial, when it comes to their rights, when it comes to their protection, when it comes to their autonomy and agency over their own bodies and over their own lives. Uh, we don't see them to we don't see them supporting these women who are suffering. What we see that they are applying orthodox religious views, and they are implementing those rigid and inflexible views within the community, and they have made them into community standards, and women are obliged to do what they are told to do, and they are obliged to comply. There is no option, they can't do it, and when they do it then they have to face consequences, and those consequences can be severe. And we see that women here in free women who are born free, who live in Western democratic societies, they are called upon to celebrate hijab, burqa, niqab, these kind of regressive things. Word hijab day is being celebrated here. I mean, I when I came here, for me it was kind of setback. I mean, I I thought these things I've been fighting against in a conservative society where I belong to. But here, people are celebrating, and who are celebrating? My kind is celebrating that. So it's really difficult to
Yes.
understand this kind of situation. Lack of empathy, I would say, to it's indifference towards these minority women. We women are suffering. We are being labeled as sellout, traitors, whores, vulgar, and then ostracized, and then torture, and in worst cases killed. And
Yeah.
we are not heard until we make a headline after being tortured, or some unfortunate women who've been killed, for defying these so-called morality standards.
Yes.
So it's really disturbing thing that on one hand, uh, there is tremendous progress for in terms of women's rights, but on the other hand, we see the same freedoms and liberties have been denied to to the minority women, when
Yes.
women are being discriminated against in Sharia councils hearings. So what we see that it's been overlooked. It's been like it's a matter, it's an internal matter. It's been regarded as an internal matter, that they are dealing with it. Even those people who are in the position of power, what they are doing, they are telling us that we know that there is problem, we know that these Muslim women are facing discrimination in Sharia council hearing, but we don't want to criticize it. I mean, this is what they try to say, that they don't want to talk about it. They are openly acknowledging that there are problems, but
Yes.
then there is a full stop. There is nothing uh, that can, give some kind of relief to women who are
Yeah.
going through this ordeal, who are facing these kind of discrimination. And for me, it's really shocking when they say these are stereotypes of Muslim women, or these are stereotypes that have been associated with the women of Muslim heritage, that they are oppressed, they are facing discrimination. I mean, for goodness sake, these are not stereotypes. These are the living realities of
Yes.
many women who are, or many of whom are suffering in silence.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this
Completely.
is really shocking.
Yeah, and there is numbers to back it up. I was just reading the other day. More than 1,000 girls and women are killed every year in Pakistan alone, which is both of our background. In Pakistan alone, in the name of honor, more than 1,000 girls and women are abducted from religious minorities, are abducted and forced to marry their captors and their rapists. That's
Yes.
1,000 a year. That's almost three a day, and in these two different crimes. And uh, we know the example of Iran. Women taking their hijab off means they are being thrown in jails for years, for decades. Saudi Arabia, we see that. Egypt, we saw 99% of the women surveyed reported facing some sort of sexual harassment. I mean, these
And
aren't just
and then
isolated.
they have been arrested on morality charges in Egypt.
Yes, I mean the Hudud ordinance. Pakistan has Hudud ordinance as well. It's
Exactly.
inhumane. I mean,
Exactly.
four eyewitnesses for rape. What,
Yes.
who in their
And
right mind can even believe, like,
exactly.
can even think that's anything? There is no
It,
common sense even. It's stupidity.
that is why I say that when you talk about women's rights, then talk about human rights. Don't try to define them in terms of religious right, because it's your basic human right that you can follow a religion. Nobody's stopping you. But when it comes to defining interaction between people, two people, or among different section of the society, then you have to talk about these things in terms of human rights, because uh, religious rights, they do not give you equality, they do not give you equal opportunity. And that is the reason that these women are suffering in Muslim majority countries. And the most problematic thing is that the tool of their oppression is celebrated here in the West. Literally, this is disappointing. I mean, I call myself a feminist. I believe in the principle of feminism, and I believe that feminism is the way forward when we want to, make progress in terms of women's rights. But when I see that the same people of my own kind who adhere to the notion of feminism, they are not willing enough to, defend those women who are fighting against the religious misogyny. That is really shocking for me. And I
Yeah,
think when you talk about women's rights, then talk about all women. You
completely.
cannot just turn a blind eye to the plight of these women by saying that this is their religion, this is their tradition. When we talk about a human being, then we need to talk about uh, human rights. We should never let it, let people commit human rights abuses or violation of women's rights in the name of religion or tradition.
Yeah, or cultural differences. That sentence, I've
Exactly.
heard people quoting the sentence saying it's cultural differences. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Are you really saying they're not as civilized as you, so you have lower expectations of
Yes.
them?
Yes, that's
Incredibly
low expectation.
condescending.
Exactly. It's really, I can't wrap my head around this argument that
Me neither.
when we see that, I mean, there has been this issue that uh, little girls should not be wearing hijab as an item, compulsory item of a uniform,
Yeah.
school uniform. But people who were talking against this practice, which is very much prevalent here in UK, uh, they had been, uh, branded as Islamophobes and whatnot, and then suddenly everybody stopped talking about it. Nobody is talking about this thing anymore, as if this issue never existed. But it's
Yeah.
still very much, a part of the society where we live in, where we see 4-year-old child is wearing hijab. And this is the problem, that you turn your um, you look the other way and assuming that this is their traditional culture, even if you see that this is injustice. I'm not saying that you should go and force your values on to other people. I'm not saying this, but
Yeah,
at least let the discussions take place, let people discussing it.
completely.
Don't, and those who try to shut down this discussion, obviously they don't want you to talk about these things. And a very recent incident, when uh, a newly appointed female leader in Muslim Council of Britain, we
Yeah,
see that what happened then. Everybody was saying that why did you ask her this question, that how many female imam are there in UK mosque? I
yeah,
mean, they are trying to shut down the discussion. They don't want you to talk about it.
yeah,
When we won't talk about what we are facing within these closed communities, how are we going to solve these issues? Saying that, shut down the discussion, why questioning a minority? This is not the solution. This is
yeah.
how you just perpetuate a structure where these traditions and these beliefs, they continue to discriminate against women
Yeah.
and vulnerable children.
Yes, this shutting down of debate. I mean, the success of the term Islamophobia is
Mm,
evident because it's got people scared.
mm,
People aren't willing to actually have an open discussion around anything to do with Islam.
mm.
Uh, yeah, it's been quite successful, and there are disqualifiers. So now it comes with disqualifiers. If you've First of all, if you've left Islam, you have no right to talk about Islam. That's a
Yeah.
disqualifier. If you're a white woman, even if you are like conducting an interview of somebody who's actually trying to portray an organization to be a feminist organization because they've just elected a women leader, and then you
Mm,
ask a question about women's representation within the faith, and there's a backlash to that. I mean,
yes.
it's just a straight link. Okay, you're talking about women being in leadership roles. How many moms are there?
Yeah. This exposes, actually, it's embarrassing to admit that there is zero imam. I mean, you are accepting, admitting that yes, we discriminate against women. We don't let women, you know, come forward and take up a leadership role. You are telling this, and this is embarrassing. And when you are living in a free society, but again, I'm not saying that you need to impose your culture on minorities. I'm just saying that we should have these discussions. We should
Yes,
not accept women rights abuses in the name of tradition and religion. I'm a humanist. I've been called Islamophobe lots of time. Whenever I talk about women's rights, I am an Islamophobe. When I'm talking about minorities, I am an Islamophobe. And this is really frustrating at times when you are talking about human rights. We are human beings and we deserve to be treated as human. And this is
exactly.
all I say, that we want to be seen as human, we want to be treated as human, and we want to have civilized discussion. And we want to talk about the issues that are crucial to us, to our welfare, to the welfare of our daughters, to the welfare of our upcoming generations. But then these are not only Islamists, I would say, or fundamentalists who would call you Islamophobe, uh, but there are many apparently liberal people who would
Yeah.
say that
Yes.
you are feeding, you know, uh, Islamophobia narrative and this and that. But then I say, when you silence me, you are emboldening Islamists.
Yes.
You are strengthening their power to abuse women, to
Yeah.
abuse women's rights. So this is how, if it's going to happen, then obviously you are showing no, I would say, regard and no concern about what's happening to minority women. And that is obviously concerning for us who are actually a part of that uh, community and part of that facing that issue.
Yes, yes, completely. Okay, talking about being part of that community, because we both are. Uh, have you seen any behavioral change over the years within women? Because there is an unfortunate reality. I have seen it in our community that a lot of misogyny is instigated by women as well, especially the elder generation.
Mhm.
My grandma, even though she was a matriarch, but she never taught her daughters and her daughter-in-laws to take a stance for themselves. She'd always ask them to be submissive of their prospective husbands. But even she herself, she was a matriarch. So, have you seen from there? Where do we stand now? How's the next generation? What's going on?
I would say it's changing. There is awareness because
Yes,
of this social media, because, you know, our mm, grandparents' generation, there was no this kind of stuff like computer, these
yes,
mobiles and social media. There is on information, and I'll give you an example of what happened in Aurat March in Pakistan. Like
yeah,
to give them a tough time, you know, the religious people, they brought their women on the road to, they allowed their women to go on road. I mean, just imagine, that's a big change, I would say. It's a
yes,
big
yes,
change.
completely,
I,
completely.
I'm very much positive about it that they came out to oppose Aurat March. But that's a change that these
That,
religious women who had been, you know, confined within four walls, now they are saying the word. And
yeah,
soon they would realize that what basic human rights have been taken away from them in the name
yeah,
of modesty, in the name of religious teaching or traditions. So
yeah,
this is how this information, this awareness is spreading. And I see that the new generation, they are very much aware of their right. Uh, we see that not only women, even the young men, they are also supporting women. Again, I will give you an example of Pakistan in autumn of Aurat March. What happened there? We see men and women are they are chanting slogans for women's right side by side. They are just demanding equal rights for women. So there is a change in the attitudes, and we can hope that uh, this will, you know, bring forth a big change in the
yeah,
society, in the behavior of the people. And the thing that you just said, that a mother would not teach her daughter to be, you know, independent. She
yeah,
would always tell her teacher, sorry, her daughter to be submissive, to be obedient. It's
yeah,
it's it's a long, I would say, it's been like a long struggle for women to take a firm stand against these kind of, you know, traditions, archaic traditions. And many women, they have uh, you know, this misogyny. They have internalized this misogyny. They
yeah,
have accepted it as a part of their being. They have accepted it as a way to please their God. Because, you know, in religion, it's always about how to please your God by
yeah,
being submissive, by submitting yourself to your husband all the time. Say yes, boss, to your father, to your brother, to your husband. So it's been centuries. So I guess it will take maybe some more time, but yes, I guess change is coming. It's inevitable. They cannot stop it.
yes, yes. And you are right. Accessibility to different cultures and different ways of life and exposure and that exposure with the ability to communicate, that's been instrumental, because when that didn't exist, it was easier to demonize. Because even in my childhood, uh, Western lifestyle was demonized
Yes.
to an extent where we thought they weren't even humans, and that's within my lifetime. And now, my younger generation growing up now, they have accessibility. They can talk to people in the other parts of the world. That makes it a bit harder because there is a human component to it,
Yes,
and
exactly.
the freedom is a bug. Once you get it, it's really hard to give it up, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and it's
This
contagious.
demonization, this demonization of Western culture is still there,
Yeah,
I would
it is,
say,
yeah.
and it's done actually in the name of religious piety. They would
Yeah.
tell you if you would try to behave like them, you would be, um,
Yes.
out of this Islamic circle and all that. You would not be a Muslim anymore. So this brainwashing, has a huge impact on a child's mind. It's very difficult for a child who is growing up with these kind of thoughts to
Yeah.
break up these barriers. It's very difficult. It For some people it takes little time, for some it takes a bit more time, but it's going to happen anyway. We are living now in a global world. We are not living in isolated society. Yes, there are certain section of Muslim communities which are very much closed, and if we continue uh, talking about these issues, if we continue having discussions, then definitely uh, we are going to make them realize that this is not the right way to lead a community, or to uh, try to confine people into the so-called morality framework. So
Yeah.
hopefully, yes, we can see a change.
Yes, yes. And how important do you think for that change to be accelerated? How important it is for religion, particularly like especially Islam, to lose some of its power? Because Islam in Muslim communities is too powerful, is extremely powerful because it's an all-encompassing religion. Uh, s- you are taught about Islam right from your birth. Uh, Usually, parents want their first word of their kids to be Bismillah and not
Mhm,
Mother.
mhm.
So it is to that extent. How important do you think Islam needs to lose some of its power for us to actually achieve that much needed change in a quicker way?
You know, it's very much a reality for children who are born and raised in conservative religious household. They have been taught a certain way of life, and it's always very rigid. It's always very, strict. You cannot just violate the boundaries of that way of life. You have to live within that framework. And in Islam, it's also like this. Within Muslim households, the kids are brainwashed, they are indoctrinated. Uh, Being a humanist, I believe that this is not the right way that you teach your children religion.
Yeah.
You should let your children be children. You should never indoctrinate your children with the stuff which is which you have no evidence to prove. I mean, it's like if you are telling your children the stories of Superman and fairy tales, you tell them that these are stories. But when you are telling or indoctrinating your children with religious belief and telling them these are the true things, what you are telling them that if you will not obey your God, you are going to burn in hell for eternity.
Yeah.
And what are you telling your baby girls that if you will not wear hijab, you will be hung, with your hair,
Yeah.
and
Or
you
making
will
them
be
ashamed
burned.
of the,
Yes, you're just. I mean, these kind of thoughts. I can't imagine to tell these things to a child, even as a fairy tale,
yeah,
let alone, as authentic religious belief. So
yeah,
I
basically,
think this information, this social media, this interaction with the people, uh, it's going to have huge impact in terms of these people losing their grip on children and on young people. These
yeah,
people means these fanatics, I would say, because most of the religion, children and these young people, they learn from the fanatics, and they live mostly in a closed circle where they don't see what's going on outside. What are there more narratives? They are always presented with one-sided, narrative, one-sided story, as we had been, in our childhood.
yeah,
I have I had never ever read any book, any religious book in my childhood, because I was told that it's a sin to even look at any other religious book.
yeah,
You cannot mingle with non-Muslims. It's
yeah,
a sin. So these kind of things, I think, when with the advancement of technology, and
yes,
the more express things, this is a very human instinct that if you suppress them, they, you know, explode
yes.
with the same,
There's more rebellion.
energy.
Yes, of course.
Exactly. And here we see that there is this um, uh, pressure of being accused of committing blasphemy and then
Yeah,
facing consequences. Then this also plays a role, in keeping people under control. That they
yeah,
are not very much open about their beliefs.
yeah,
They don't want to talk about these things because they think that if they will do that, this will endanger their lives, or
yes,
they are not free to say whatever they want to. So I think it will take time, but uh, I don't think so that these this suppression and the way they try to control people, this will continue to be like that for a long time, because
uh,
uh, it is indoctrination. It is extreme version that you're teaching kids,
yeah,
and there is actually a fear. I think that if these children they would leave one extreme, where they would go. I mean, you are just leaving them with nothing because they are closed, they are living in bubble, they
yeah,
don't know the life outside of this bubble. So this, with the help of this technology, with this discussion, with these
yeah.
things, if still somebody wants to follow a religion as a personal, on personal level, it's all
Fair
fine.
enough.
But those who don't want to follow, they should be all free to leave, to abandon, to denounce the religion.
Yes, yes, completely. And you rightly mentioned how detrimental it is to take away the ability to question from children. uh, Teaching children that we are telling you this, we are the authority, and you cannot question it in return. If you question, there's punishment for you. And the version you are telling them is instilling guilt and shame in children. So it's really detrimental to their own well-being, their individuality, because first of all, there isn't individuality in Islam, because you are
Exactly.
considered a part of a collective. On your own, not really. You like, you are part of the ummah, the nation of Islam. So
Yes.
individuality is extremely important. And gladly, yes, you're right that we do see some change.
It's
That's
inevitable. You can't stop it. I always say that it's there is this. Uh, this actually the same thing happened with women. The women have been, brainwashed into believing that there is no individuality. They are always defined in relation to men. Whatever they
Yes.
do, it's all for the family. They have to look after kids. There is nothing that they can do something. They can think of themselves.
Yeah.
It's, there is nothing that tells them. So
Yes.
many of those women, if we see some women saying that my religion is enough for me, I don't want any other right more than what my religion gives me. So it shouldn't come as a surprise, I would say, because there is a very reasonable explanation behind this, behavior. That when you are told for so long, you're living in a bubble and you're told that you are as an individual, you are nothing, but you are just part of a fabric. You have to serve, serve, and serve. Then obviously, then you sometimes you start loving your chains. You don't want to break them.
Yes,
You,
yes, completely. And when you do eventually break them, it comes with a lot of baggage. There's anger, there is a lot of emotion
yeah,
involved. I've
mm,
been through that. It took me a long time to be okay with my apostasy because
mm,
I couldn't imagine a life without Islam. Because Islam was so it was part of me. There
mm,
was no
that's true.
me without Islam. I wasn't Pakistani without Islam. I wasn't my
And
parents' child
and
without Islam.
you felt it being a man. Just imagine
Yes,
a woman. Just imagine a woman in such society. I mean,
completely.
you would agree that boys are looked after in a much more better way than girls are. I mean,
Yes,
you know
I've
that.
benefited
Still, they
from
have
that my whole life.
given exactly. Still they have given some autonomy, some power, some
Yeah,
confidence in their life, and they are told that you are born to dictate women in
yeah,
your life, whether it is your mother. I
yeah,
mean, once you are grown up, you can tell your mother not to do this and that. So
completely.
wife, you can beat your wife uh, when you find her disobeying. So
Yeah. I was the eldest son in my family, so yeah, yeah, there was so many benefits to it. I'd never
yes,
have to get up from my computer table to get water. I'd always just shout to my sister, "Okay, bring me water here," because that was her work. She was a woman,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
and
So
it.
these are.
No, sorry, go on, go on.
I was just saying to these little things, they are very deep rooted in your mind and in your life.
Yeah.
Firstly, it's hard to break through, and once you are done, you are very confused,
Yes.
you are angry, you don't know where to go, what to do, and there are lots of emotions, simultaneously going on in your mind, and you don't
Yeah.
know what are you going to be. There is so much uncertainty, and
Complete.
it's hard. If I am a parent, I I can't imagine throwing my own child into such confused world in such situation where my child cannot comprehend or cannot contemplate what to do and what not to do. So that is a very that is, you can say, a very negative aspect of raising children in such strict and rigid environment.
Yes, yes, completely. And what happens once there is no individuality and there's burden of expectations uh, with a lot of policing? Like we know the policing of women in our societies, right? Because they are the first of all, like it's crazy. They say, okay, if a man goes astray, a man goes astray. If a woman
Mhm.
goes astray, the generations go astray.
But exactly, it's
And we know the
first they
word
tell.
astray. It means
Yes,
just
yes. And there is a hadith, I guess. There is a hadith that says that a woman does not go to hell alone. She takes four men from her
yes,
family along: father, brother, son, and husband. So first they tell women that you are an embodiment of sin.
Yeah,
You, and then they tell men that now you are going to hell because of this, because of
yes.
her. So it's your duty to take care of her and take care of her.
Take care of
And
it. Yes, completely. And
yes,
it's the same principle behind hijab as well.
exactly.
You'll cause
This,
fitna.
yes,
Men would become lustful if you don't wear
yes,
hijab, and you're causing fitna.
exactly,
It's that,
exactly.
and that means a lot more policing, a lot more expectations. Where there's shame being instilled, there's fear
Mm,
being instilled, and expectations, the weight of expectations. And if somebody does break free from them, it takes a while to get rid of that, because you
exactly.
always feel like you're being looked over, like watched over, with the big brothers always there, right?
Yes. It's a very negative feeling that they instill, in female child, this shaming with her own body, with her own, self. You can't really um, get over. I don't think so. It's so strong. You can rebel, you can show your anger, but this is really unfair, literally, to do this to your
It's
child,
abusive.
telling her
It's
it's very
abusive.
abusive, and it has huge psychological, effect on your whole life. You cannot just get rid of these kind of things. I know some women who have stopped wearing hijab and who don't comply with the so-called morality standards, but still, literally, sometimes I have seen women crying for what they have been taught about themselves, and that is really abusive. You are mentally abusing your child and you don't know. The thing is that you don't know about it, or you perhaps I mean, I don't know what is the state of mind of the parents who are just doing this to their female child and not realizing that what they are doing actually. I mean, this
Yeah, I mean,
embodiment of sin thing is, I mean, this the whole responsibility of the welfare of the society is on women, on us, on women, on women, that you are responsible for men to behave decently. And men are never going to do this. In Egypt, women wear Islamic clothing,
yeah,
but they face sexual harassment and then they are arrested on morality charges. In Pakistan, women wear, I mean,
conservative
traditional
clothing.
clothes,
Yeah,
conservative majority. Very few women you would see with like Western clothing, mostly, but still they face sexual harassment. They face this kind of situation where they feel uncomfortable
yeah,
around, when men are around. So it's never been about what clothes we wear. It's always about that we are women. That's it.
completely.
We wear burqa, we cover ourselves, doesn't matter,
Yeah,
because it doesn't protect you. If clothes protect you, then no women face sexual harassment, sexual abuse in Muslim society.
completely.
But
Completely.
that exposes the shallowness of this whole, modesty, toxic modesty culture, that you try to suppress women in every possible way to make your society look like a decent society according to your own mindset. And then what you are come up with, men sexually harassing women, men sexually abusing women. I mean, you do it to control men and still you're failed to control them. I think,
Completely. And also, if men are the problem, if it's men who are gonna become lustful and can't control themselves, why do women have to suffer for that? The
exactly.
problem is men, right? So you've
Yes,
identified the problem. Men are the beasts.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Islamic. Then why
Yes,
do
that,
women have to wear hijab? Shouldn't you solve the problem instead of just going uh, to the other side and pressing them?
this is the hypocrisy, I would say, of the society which are built on religious morality or which drives their morals from religious teaching. That on one hand, they would tell you that you are men and women are equal in the eyes of God in terms of spirituality. They do good or bad. They would be punished or awarded, equally. There would be no difference. But then they tell men that yes, you can do whatever you want. Men have been given these 4 wives and countless sex slaves, and still you have this authority to, harass women or beat women. I
Yeah.
mean, try to make your own way. Try to, live the way you want to live, and then you say that you will be equally punished for what you are doing. I mean, what happens in Pakistan? That people, I call these people insults of Pakistan, actually. Literally, if you have heard about, this Khalilur Rahman and company, these are the
Yeah, I heard of
people.
them.
They would say that men are basically, not faithful. They can cheat uh, because it's their nature. And when you're saying it, you actually, what are you trying to say is that men can do these kind of stuff, but women can't because it's not what women are supposed to be in good societies. So uh, this is really hypocritical, I would say. This is uh, unfair. This is uh, like unjust how they try to treat both genders and then put onus on women to make this society look like a civilized society.
Yeah, yes, completely. And you've you've talked about Khalilur Rahman there, the infamous opponent of Aurat March. So
Yes.
International Women's Day was on 8th of March, a week ago from today. Um, how how do you think this day is important in context of, let's say, Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, all those Islamic majority countries where women are suffering? What role can this day play in particular? But we know the struggle needs to be every day, but this one day, what role can it play?
On International Women's Day, we celebrate women in every role. Uh, and here in the Western society, obviously, tremendous progress has been made in terms of women's rights. And still, there is always a discussion how to protect women's rights, how to make progress, how to make laws and implement laws to end violence against women. And there is, huge opportunities, I would say, to have these discussions. When we talk about societies like Pakistan, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, we see a struggle, a like continuous struggle to uh, for women to demand their basic human rights, and they have been, imprisoned. They have been tortured. Women in Iran and Saudi Arabia, activists have been imprisoned just for demanding basic human rights. And even in Pakistan, we see there has been, this celebration for women's International Women's Rights Day, and we know that it's very important for these societies because here these discussions are just beginning, I would say, to take place.
Yes.
And still, they are facing so much backlash. I mean, you take to the street and try to celebrate Women's Day. It's not easy for you in these societies without facing, catcalling, without facing harassment, intimidation. It's not easy. So I see that these women, when they celebrate this International Women's Day, that obviously they are collaborating with a wider movement for women's rights. And it's very important for them to be a part of this movement and to have their voices heard.
Yes, yes, and Aurat March in Pakistan, Women's March. How it's been an amazing success story, because even 5 years ago, maybe it was happening, but people hadn't really heard of it. But in last couple of years, last 3 years in particular, it's getting bigger and better every year. Uh, what's the reason behind this success, and why do you think it's gaining this much traction? I mean, of course it comes with, there's a lot of demonization going on, there's a lot of attacks and threats going on, but there is also a success element. They, at the very least, it's got the conversation going, or as you said, even the women who are coming out against it, the women led by their religious feeling or by their religion, even now they know they can get out on streets for a cause, right? And sooner or later they are going to realize. So there is definite success for it, right?
Exactly. The
What do you
women's
think
right,
is the reason? Yep.
women's rights, the struggle for women's rights, it's been a part of the history of Pakistan. Women's they have always been taking part in demonstrations and in struggles, even in Zia's era, when the women they burned their dupattas to, defy,
Yes.
this religious policing. So it's been a, very much part of Pakistani fabric. And yes, you're absolutely right in saying that it's been 5 years that this Aurat March has been, more organized, and it's gaining the momentum, I would say, in terms of demanding equality for women in Pakistani society. And yes, they are facing lots of criticism, and I think it's a part of the success story that they are gaining the success, this criticism also. We see people, conservative organization, religious organization, people with orthodox religious belief, they are very much, against Aurat March, but despite of all opposition, they are every year they come up uh, with more organized agendas. And what are those agendas? These agendas are to talk about women's rights, talk about equality for women, and to reclaim their place in social discourse. And the healthcare problem for women in Pakistan. There are many areas in Pakistan where women they don't have any healthcare facility,
Yeah.
and they are suffering because of that. And then they talk about sexual harassment. Um, this happens at workplace, in street, and this happens in wherever, you can say, in public places even. So they are talking about that sexual harassment, the discrimination women face in their own houses, in their homes. They talk about that discrimination, the abuse of power that they face in relationship. Uh, they talk about these issues, and I think it's a huge successful story of this age, that they are much more organized, they are much more I guess powerful in terms of strengthening, women and their voices, the way they are coming out and coming together and making, all this women march and turning it into a momentum. I guess it's a huge success story.
Um, yes, it has, and the banners have been amazing, of course.
Ah, yeah.
They are really creative.
Yes, exactly. Mera jism meri merzi, my body, my choice.
Yes, that is the best slogan that
Yes.
any cause it's been. And I mean,
You
you'd
know
think
what is the most ridiculous thing about the objection, against this slogan? Jism is the translation of the word, like English word body.
body,
And
yes,
this is an Urdu word, jism.
yeah,
We are literally, we are amazing that we hate our own language. This word doesn't say anything except jism, body.
yes,
They have associated vulgarity, obscenity, what not with this word. That women who are saying openly and loudly that Mera Jism Meri Mercy, they are talking about, I mean, what they are talking about is just to have autonomy over their own body
completely,
and to have the right to decide what they want to do with their body. And
yes,
that is for everyone, not only for women. I mean, men, every children, every child, every woman, every man, they all have this autonomy over their body. So,
yeah,
what is wrong in saying it? But then they have to come up you know, with these kind of criticism that is associated with vulgarity, with absurdity, because undercover, whatever you do with these kind of society, you can harass women, you can sexually abuse women, you can marital rape, you can do, and you can justify it in the name of religion,
yeah.
but nothing should be said publicly.
That's the thing
That
about our
is,
culture. This is
yes,
this I usually think about this quite a lot, and I find it astonishing. We let go of child abuse in mosques because we don't want to talk about it in public because it's
yes,
taboo to talk about in public. We let go of abuse against our own children in schools and madrasas because, uh, I mean, uncles, I know families,
unbelievable, unbelievable.
I know families that I know the kids who've told their families, but the families won't do anything because what will people say? Are you
Yes.
really that naive to compromise your child's safety and
And
actually well-being?
and
Uh,
this is all done in the name of honor. These things have become cliche. This vulgarity, fahashi, obscenity. You can't just do or say anything that is, associated with these words. And the same thing happens with this Aurat March. I mean, this has been a huge success, I would say, and we should be proud of it. Not
complete.
only women, men are participating. They are walking side by side, talking about women's right and equality for women. And that should be the story of Pakistan for the entire world, that look what we are, achieving on this very day, on International Women's Day. But then there are threats, then there are, accusation. You must have heard about this blasphemy accusation against
The
our march.
blasphemy accusations, yeah,
Exactly. And it didn't happen in a vacuum. It's been 5 years that the Aurat March has been targeted. People have been, criticizing it and harshly criticizing it, accusing them of being vulgar, calling them whore, do number or they,
yeah.
foreign funded march, and they are promoting Western agenda, they are promoting vulgarity. And that was the last resort for these fanatics, I would say, for these lunatics to
Yeah,
accuse Bharat March of committing blasphemy.
yeah.
And you know that what happens in Pakistan. You don't have to prove allegations
Mm.
of blasphemy. It's enough
Accusation
to
is
just
enough.
say,
Yeah,
falsely accuse anybody of blasphemy. It's enough to incite violence against that person. And now they have been accused of blasphemy. Taliban's, they have threatened them. I mean, can you imagine a banned organization is threatening the participant and organizers of Women's March with fatal consequences for committing this, uh, allegedly committing blasphemy.
I've heard
And
these were
those videos,
doctored. I've heard,
exactly, and it's been proven that these videos and posters have been doctored and manipulated. But still, you know,
so
I see that this is their modus operandi, I would say, to silence dissent, to shut down debate, and it's very much
yeah,
working in Pakistan at the moment
yeah.
because state, yes,
I mean, it's strange because blasphemy, namuse risalat, is
mhm,
one of the most grave crimes for to a Pakistani mind, right? But the protectors of Namus Risalah, the sanctity of Muhammad and his prophethood, would with their own fingers would type and write blasphemous texts just to undermine women. They'd
yes,
commit a crime that's so grave for them that it deserves
mhm,
death, right? They'd
yes,
commit
exactly,
that to undermine women coming out and demand their rights.
yes,
I
exactly, and
mean,
this is unbelievable because uh, these women are accused of such a crime that carries death penalty in Pakistan, though Pakistani state hasn't, executed
executed anyway.
this sentence. These vigilantes, they,
Yeah,
you know, lynch people before they are, they appear before the court. So it's a very um, difficult situation and very dangerous situation in which the women, the participant of Women's March, Aurat March, and the organizers have been placed. Now it's the duty of the Pakistani state. They have to interrogate the matter. They have
yes,
to bring these people to justice. They have to give protection to the participant and to the organizers of Aurat March, because Aurat March has been so peaceful during all these years. There
yeah,
has not been a single leaf that you can say it's been hurt.
yeah.
It was so peaceful. It was so wonderful, colorful, that
Cultural,
truly represent,
our,
yes, that
our
truly
own
represent our
culture.
culture.
Yes,
Exactly. This is what I was about to say, that they truly represent our culture, that
yes.
we are so colorful people, and this is how we are lively, and we are, we thrive in these colors. But sadly, sadly, I would say that these people have been given this much encouragement. It's a deafening silence on the part of Pakistani government,
Yeah,
that they are able to accuse of someone, you know wrongly, of blasphemy in the first place, but then we can hardly see any interrogation, following this incident, because um, this has always been the case, that people would accuse vulnerable people,
yeah,
minorities, of committing blasphemy,
yeah.
and there is hardly any, investigation and or evidence that can prove those allegations, but it's enough to say that somebody has committed it. But in this case, in Aurat March, it's been proven, this has been in Pakistani media, that they haven't committed blasphemy, they haven't chanted any
Why
blasphemous
would
slogan.
they? They are Muslim, right? You
Exactly.
can't
And
really
yeah,
assume that if you disagree or somebody disagree with your form of religion doesn't mean they don't respect the prophet they follow.
exactly. And actually, this all done just to stop this march and just to silence this woman.
Yeah,
There was no vulgarity. There was nothing like that. What they, accusing them of. It
yeah,
was a march, a colorful, peaceful march that represent our, culture, that represent us as people. That we are lovely people. We know how to love. We know how to spread love.
Joy,
But
yeah.
this extremist element, it's there to demonize again the peaceful people. And the
Completely.
deafening silence from the government, from Pakistani government, it's reprehensible. They should take action against those people now, and they should make it sure that these women they get proper security, because obviously they have been put in dangerous situation.
Yes, yes, completely. Accusation of blasphemy is akin to death sentence in Pakistan, unfortunately. That's a
Yes,
topic on its own because the way blasphemy is dealt with in Pakistan, that's inhumane altogether.
yes,
And it is an instrument and a tool used by Islamist and the Orthodox to to suppress any form of dissent. Uh, and unfortunately, they think women just coming out and
mm,
being themselves and demanding what
yes,
should be their right to begin with, anyways, is
yes,
dissent. But
yes,
it is dissent, it is heresy in that
mm,
culture, but
yes,
it is a form of defense that will lead the change that we already see is leading the change. And hopefully,
hopefully,
it'll keep getting bigger and better,
yes,
and we see a lot more of those famous banners, which seem to be
yes,
getting better every
sure.
year.
Yes,
And
yes, definitely, definitely. It's a joy to watch all this happening, even from a distance. It's
even
lovely.
from yes, yes, completely. And I mean, there was just before we go, there was one incident that people used to actually demonize Aurat March, and that was of women dancing on the
Yes,
roads, right? So
yes, yes,
they they just being themselves dancing.
exactly. And I don't understand that what's their fear. It's again controlling women. They can't control these women, and these are women who know their rights and who know why they are taking to the streets, and
Yes,
they want to make a difference for those who don't have voice. I mean,
yes,
they would say, oh, these are wealthy aunties, who are just marching. I mean, those women who have voice, they have a moral, I guess, obligation to voice the concerns of voiceless. So
completely.
saying that, okay, they are coming from all well-educated background and families, they shouldn't be there. Where is that Mazdoor woman who is, the real victim? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. These are
Mukhtara Mai was leading the women's march in Multan, right?
yes, yes, that was
And,
incredible.
mhm,
And we should appreciate all forms, all people who are joining hands, and they are coming together. They are talking about equality. They are talking about love, peace, harmony, and this is
yeah,
all what we need. I mean, enough of this being branded,
yes,
breeding ground for extremists and all that. Now let it happen
yes,
and
yes,
just
completely.
see what we are. Let us also enjoy and let us also embrace what we are actually.
Yes, 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 completely. And there was a strange sense of justice that I felt, karma, let's say, a couple of days ago when I saw, think, a band of boys on a college campus or university campus were
Yes,
celebrating Punjab Culture Day or something, and they were
yes. I
dancing.
love that. Yes, 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 yes. It's lovely, literally. I love to tell people that I'm Punjabi. It brings so much colorful memories and
Yes,
very colorful references, I would say. And when I tell people, especially our neighbors, people from India, they are Punjabi, I see them and I start talking in my mother tongue. It's so lovely, and I just love it when I see people celebrating our culture. It's really really encouraging.
Yes, yes, completely. And Rux has been part of our culture since its inception,
Yes,
right? And
yes, yes, yes.
you can't really demonize it when our mehndis aren't complete without.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, uh, right. Thank you so much for joining me, Khadija, and thank you
Oh,
so
thank you
much
so
for
much
all.
for having me. It was lovely talking to you.
And you, thank you. Right, I think we've come to an end. Thank you everybody for joining us. This video will be on Mariam Nawaz's Facebook and on Nano Gulosur. Please subscribe to the channel and to check for our upcoming events. And if you want to be part of our support group that we offer, please go to our events page and you can send us an email at hello.xmuslim, uh, hello@xmuslim.org.uk. And you can check all of our other services on our website as well. That is xmuslim.org.uk. And thank you for joining us. Thank you. Oh no, Women Leaving Islam, the movie. I need to plug that as well. So
Yes, yes, it's a wonderful movie. Yes.
yes, that's a great movie. So we recently released a film called Women Leaving Islam. It's a story of six ex-Muslim women from different parts and different from belonging to different parts of the world and their journey out of Islam. It's a brilliant film, and it features all the friendly and known faces of ex-Muslim women. Please have a look. It's on this same channel and on CEMB's website. You can follow that. Thank you. I'm just gonna go
Thank
offline
you.
now.